Last thing I expected. Yo, what's going on? It's someone that's no one, and welcome back to today's report. Today's report was sent in by Nick. The drugs used were alcohol, methamphetamine, tobacco, and an unknown stimulant at a dose of 200 milligrams estimated of meth. The route of administration, orally and insufflated. Gender, male. Prior experience, we'll say at the time he was a normal drug user. And the setting, Poland, specifically at his friend's house, his house, and then the hospital. So in this report, we get a look into one point in Nick's life where he binge uses various drugs and ends up experiencing consequences when he comes home. This is somewhat of a gone wrong experience, or at least very close to it. But keep in mind, there still is another part, so the full story isn't laid out. Regardless, quite a bit does happen, and the story is written with some pretty good detail from his point of view at the time. Let me know if you guys want to see part 2 once you have listened to this report. If you want more experiences like this, let me know, or even feel free to send one in. Like and subscribe if you enjoy. Without further ado, let's dive right into this. At one point in my life, I was in Poland for half a year, hoping my parents could cut my supply of drugs by sending me across the ocean to live with my father. I can't remember what happened most of the time, but one night stands out the most. I get a call on Messenger from one of my friends I met at a gas station nearby. He invited me to a house overnight that we could chill at. I walk a good 60 minutes there and was greeted by him. There was me, my friend we will call M, and 2 other people that I'll call S and C. The house was owned by the parents of C's girlfriend, who was left in charge of taking care of the house while they were away in the countryside for 1 week. We begin to chat, and I'm served some whiskey mixed with Coca-Cola and got pretty tipsy. During the conversation, I thank S for the speed he provided me a week ago, and C picks up on what I said. He tells me, "Come inside and look." I oblige and see a line of powder. He tells me to rail it, and I oblige, which it felt very like Adderall. We plan on doing more of whatever the substance was, and for that, we needed to weigh it out. C goes to another house to get a scale, returns, and we enter the kitchen. I ask M what drug it is, and he said it's similar to speed, but not speed. S then pulls out a 40-pack cigarette box, and when he opens it, it's some very beautiful, gold-tinted crystal meth. We weigh out 0.4 grams, and we make lines from them. I pick the one I think is the biggest, and rail it. And when that shit touched my nostrils, it fucking burned. And when I say fucking burned, I mean it fucking burned. I began to tear up. The burning subsided within a minute or so, and then it hit me. I felt very clear-headed and stopped fidgeting as much. I have ADHD. Breathing felt way easier, and moving seemed to be effortless. I felt like I can complete anything. We kept on talking to each other until sunrise, getting more tipsy, snorting more lines, smoking more cigarettes. I eventually consume about 4 lines of meth, which I'd estimate to be 200 milligrams in total. The sun eventually rises at about 4:30 a.m., and I thanked them all for the meth and was given an extra cigarette on my way home. I felt euphoric and alive on my way home and greeted people I didn't know at all. I get back home and masturbate for 8 hours straight while struggling with ED. Holy fuck, just stroking it sent pleasurable pins and needles down my body, and it was fucking amazing. Sometime during the session, I begin to see my wall somewhat form faces staring at me, and I fall into a trance-like state and just jerk off while imagining the weirdest stuff for several hours. At one point, I thought I had 3 penises, and that they were joystick controllers for women to play some sort of video game that controlled the emotions of a man. Eventually, I give up and head out at about 2 p.m. outside. My dad's worker informs him that I was up very early, complaining of stomach problems, and my dad comes to interrogate me. He notices I am shaking and that my pupils are dilated and asks if I am okay, which I say yeah. He proceeds to threaten me with beatings if I fuck with him again, and he punishes me by making me run around the property 30 times. I had no problem with that, knowing the stimulant will help me, so I begin. After completing lap 1, my dad calls me and says,
I need to make sure your blood pressure isn't too high for exercise. And when he does measure it, it read 180 over 120 and a pulse of 165, and it would barely drop. He tells me to get in the car and drives me to the hospital, and then we meet with a doctor. I try to play it off as too much caffeine, and the doc says I am lying because caffeine constricts pupils, which stunned me. I thought it was the opposite, but I don't even know now. They all ask me what I took, and if I don't confess, I will be sent for a blood analysis and those sort of things. And I'm not letting them find methamphetamine in my system, so I come up with some bullshit saying it was shrooms, and proceed to spew out more BS that I get away with. Go home with a prescription of hydroxyzine. It's not done yet. I'll write the next part another time.